Well, the Jazz are in the market for a new head coach after cutting ties with Ty Corbin. Greg Wrubell's here. The offseason revamping starting right at the top.
Yeah, last week it was players cleaning out lockers. Today it's Ty cleaning out his office. Jazz make it official today. The team opting not to offer Ty Corbin a new contract. The decision brings to an end a Jazz coaching tenure that began 10 years ago as an assistant to Jerry Sloan. Corbin was somewhat hamstrung with a very young roster this past season, but it's hard to argue for your job when you've got the worst record in the Western Conference. That said, Jazz brass say today's decision to part ways with a franchise stalwart superseded wins and losses and may have come down to philosophy more than fit.
From 5,000 feet, there were philosophical things, and as most of you know, sometimes you can have a philosophy that has great synergy, but it just be the wrong time for a marriage or for a relationship. And sometimes there are going to be differences of opinion on whether it be personnel or what you're doing with the personnel. So I think you have to assume that there was, there were some different thoughts. And again, that's one of the reasons why we made the decision we made today.
Well, the Jazz, a very stable organization. They've been in Utah for 35 years, and the new head coach will be only their 5th since moving to Salt Lake City.
So there's Layden and there's Sloan and Corbin. The Jazz have a history of hiring from within. Are they going to break that mold here? What do you think? Well, if we learned anything from Dennis Lindsay today, it's that anything's possible, everything's on the table. It could be a veteran coach, an up-and-coming outsider, or he could look to his own bench. That he said he'll not be limited, normally be limited by the calendar. Said there's no timetable, but the search is underway. And the lottery's coming up.
Indeed. It'll be here before you know it.
See you in a few minutes with more, Greg. Thanks. As we reported earlier, the Jazz not bringing back Ty Corbin as their head coach. They're not going to renew his contract, so essentially he's out.
Greg Wrubell's here now, and with the Jazz say there were philosophical differences. What were their differences with Ty?
Well, the roster they gave Ty this year was very, very young, and his handling of the young players in particular drew a lot of attention with this past season's team. But in announcing his decision to let Ty Corbin go today, Jazz GM Dennis Lindsay said Corbin's tenure was not judged solely on how he handed out playing time for his younger players.
I think the criticism that Ty took over the last few years relative to the young guys, more times than not missed the mark. I think Ty did a fine job in determining who should play and rotations, and we're completely comfortable with the minutes that our young guys got last year. We were looking at a lot of different criteria over multiple years. We feel at this time we're just going to stand by the decision, and that it was a multi-year decision.
Jazz coaching search underway. Ty Corbin not the only NBA coach on the move today. In his first big decision as Knicks president, Phil Jackson has fired Mike Woodson and his staff. The Knicks had big hopes coming into the season, but missed the playoffs. Former Jazz killer Steve Kerr, a possible replacement. And NBA veteran head coach Rick Adelman deciding to step down. He's coached the last 3 years in Minnesota. Adelman had great battles with the Jazz in Portland, Sacramento, Houston, and Golden State. He will stay on as a team advisor. Coming up at 6:30, we'll take a look at what's next for the Jazz and what kind of coaching options they might have in mind.
It's interesting because there are not a lot of giant big names out there just looking for work. So it's hard to know which direction they're going to go.
And Dennis Lindsay comes out of the Spurs, and the Spurs kind of have a reputation as out-of-the-box thinkers. And maybe this will be Dennis's first real big move, I think. And we'll see what kind of splash he makes, and may think a little bit in an unorthodox fashion. We'll see.
All right.